Okay, good evening, everybody. Professor Benny Gruen here, and I am an adjunct professor at Torrey University Worldwide in the Bachelor's of Social Work program. In this short lecture, we're going to learn a nice mnemonic to remember Kohlberg's stages of moral development. I'm going to share my screen, and we'll get started. Bear with me a moment. Okay, almost there. Here we go. Okay. PowerPoint. And we are ready. Okay. So Lawrence Kohlberg, he developed the stages of moral development. Let's get started. Okay, so brief biography, right? You can see it, a little picture of him here. Lawrence Kohlberg lived from 1927 till 1987. Only 6 years. He actually committed suicide. He had a couple of mental issues, some health problems toward the end of his life. He committed suicide, but he was very well known for the development of his stages of morality. It was part of his doctoral dissertation, and he continued studying it after that. He's pretty well known for this. Okay, now I always like to address, why are we studying this particular topic? Why is it important to study Kohlberg's stages of moral development? So a couple different reasons. We're going to focus on one, and one of them is it's very important to understand when two people are arguing with each other and each person thinks they're 100% right, very often there's a little bit of truth to both of them. And what Kohlberg taught us here is that people could be at different stages of moral development, meaning people will think differently based on what stage they're holding by. So I might think one way, I might think this is the moral way, and you might think, no, this is the moral way, and there is no right or wrong. We might just be holding at a different stage. So that's just one reason why it might be helpful to study Kohlberg and his stages of moral development. There's the bottom point here on this slide. Kohlberg's goal was not to tell us what's right or wrong. His goal was just to help us understand how people arrive at their judgment, how morality develops over time. But he's not telling us necessarily what's right or wrong. Okay, so the mnemonic that I created for Kohlberg stages, and I made this back when I was a social work student, I had a friend whose name was Kohlberg, and a friend of mine in school, and Kohlberg sounds like Kohlberg, so he's a perfect person for me to use. If you don't have a friend named Kohlberg, you could just use Kohlberg. Anyway, I imagine my friend Kohlberg driving his pickup truck to the conformist police convention. He's driving his pickup truck to the conformist police convention. And I made some images with AI. You can see the conformist police convention on the bottom, and I actually stuck it on the back of the pickup truck in the top image. Now, what is this pickup truck? The pickup truck stands for PCP, pickup. P for pre-conventional, C for conventional, which just means conforming, and the final P for post-conventional. Those are Kohlberg's three main stages. Again, Kohlberg driving his pickup truck to the conformist police convention. I say conformist police convention. You'll see why I picked those words as we go along. But Kohlberg driving his pickup truck to the conformist police convention, pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. Okay, so Kohlberg, I hope I don't make that mistake too many times. So Kohlberg has three different levels of moral development, PCP. But each of those levels is divided into two. And the idea is that as a person advances in the moral development, the cues, or what pushes the person, what drives a person to be moral, goes from very external to more internal. And you'll understand that better as we go along. So in the pre-conventional stage, the first part of it, a child or whoever it is very motivated by the fear of punishment. They don't want to get punished, right? Punishment is an external cue. As they move on, they change and they act a certain way or do a certain thing because they want a reward. So you see that those are both punishment and reward are both external cues. That's in the pre-conventional stage. Remember, Kohlberg is driving his pickup truck to the conformist police convention. The convention, the middle stage here, conventional, the idea of conventional means that the person starts conforming to society, that what they're doing is because they want to conform to the rest of society. In the first half of this stage, people want to have friends. They want to be popular. So somebody might do something to make themselves popular. And the second half of the stage is they just want to follow the law. whatever laws are, they want to behave. They're maybe a little bit afraid of the police, but they want to follow the law. Again, this is a little bit more, a little bit more internal. We moved away from the external punishment reward to a little bit more internal, wanting to have friends or staying away from the police, keeping the law. And remember, it's going back over there, it's the conformist police convention. Conformist is the conventional stage, police convention. Okay, and finally, the third stage, the post-conventional stage, where the cues are really coming from internal beliefs and internal ideas, internal morality, where the first half is a person wants to just follow the social contract. And we'll discuss more what that means soon. And even later, the final epitome of morality and moral development is universal ethical principles, where people do things that they believe are universally considered ethically correct. Okay, so maybe before we even move on, I'll give a quick example of just each one, just important. So punishment, we know, right? A child might say, I won't steal the candy because I'll get punished if I get caught. That's just a quick example. And a reward, I'll help you with your homework if you help me with mine, right? Famous phrase, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So that's all in the pre-conventional stage, the P for the pickup, P, pre-conventional. Finally, they move on to conventional, where they want to conform to society. That's the conformist convention. And the person who has this stage, they want to try to be popular. They want to have friends, right? I help my friend because good friends help each other. You might hear someone say that. He does things. He wants to create a posse. He wants to have a following. He wants to create friends. And then they advance the second half of the stage, which is a person's driving their car. I'm not going to speed because the laws are made to keep people safe, right? What they're doing, they're making their moral decisions based on the laws. But a further advancement, now they go into the post-conventional stage. And they understand that there's a social contract. What a social contract basically is this public agreement that people recognize laws are important. But, and that's the important part, they realize there's a but. Laws could be changed when the laws conflict with someone's fundamental rights. So, for example, there's a law that says I'm not allowed to trespass on my neighbor's yard. But if maybe a kid is lost, a child's lost on that yard or in the other person's property, then it might be justified to break the law. So in the previous stage of morality, the law is the law. Now we realize maybe the laws could be bent sometimes when necessary. And finally, the highest level of moral development, the universal ethical principles, where people make decisions based on universal principles of justice, human dignity, even if it's against the law. So for example, during the Holocaust, many people hid some of the fugitives or Jewish people or gypsies or whoever it was that the Nazis were trying to harm. Some of the Polish people, other people hid them in their house at great personal sacrifice, at great personal risk, right? So they were breaking the law because they were doing what they felt was correct, even though it meant possibly bringing great harm to them. So these different stages of moral development, and you kind of see how a little child might do something for a reward or to avoid punishment. And as they get older, they try to be it and be popular with their friends. And finally, we hope that people advance this higher level of post-conventional moral development. Okay, that's one last thing, a very, very famous Heinz dilemma that Kohlberg created. He had the story that Heinz's wife was dying from cancer, and there was a certain medicine that could save her, but Heinz was unable to afford the medicine. He tried, he couldn't get it, so Heinz broke into the store, stole the medicine, and gave it to his wife. His wife got healed. Question: was Heinz correct? This dilemma. This question is something that Kohlberg posed to many, many people, and 75% from a representative sample of Americans, meaning a sample that represented the diversity of America, 75% of the respondents said that what Heinz did was wrong. It was wrong to steal, even though Heinz had a very good reason to steal. He wanted to save his wife's life, but still it was wrong. However, most of that 75% said that even though it's wrong, they still might do it. So food for thought, a very interesting story. And like we said before in the very beginning, Kohlberg cared less about the specifics of the answer, and he cared more about the reasoning behind the answer, because that's what showed him how the morality develops, right? Okay, so there's a quick recap. I'm just going to review the mnemonic here. To remember Kohlberg's stages of moral development, think of Kohlberg driving the pickup truck to the conformist police convention. And the main point is the Kohlberg driving the pickup. The pickup, that's our main thing. Pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. And as we move along in morality, the cues, the Motivation goes from external to more internal. That middle one, that C, is conventional, because if you remember, the pickup truck is driving the police conformist convention, where people are trying to conform to be like their friends. That's that middle stage. Okay, hope this is helpful. All the best, everybody. Take care. See you in the next video.